upon meditations. Andrew Tate talking about God to two atheists and saying how he used to be atheist, but now he actually does believe in God.
Is energy of the universe.
Okay, so I'm thinking of God. I'm thinking of God as a force for good. If you believe that there's an evil force which is doing this on purpose, then you would have to believe there's a positive force, and that positive force is God. Even if you don't believe in God, men who stand up and say no in and amongst themselves under the name of God makes God a real thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. I go to churches in Romania that are 5,000 years old. If you go to a building that is 5,000 years old, and for 5,000 years people have gone there and thought positive thoughts and prayed to an imaginary man called God under the name of positivity, do you believe that that makes God in and of itself, in that particular building, in and of itself, a real thing? When people go there and only positively think of one thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
I understand your points of view. I want you to just, as I carry on, I want you to both know.
Real quick, do you guys agree with that? Basically, what he's talking about is residual energy.
Yeah, I think so.
Saying how if someone is going to a place for 5,000 years, thinking positive thoughts and praying to God and thinking positively, do you believe in residual energy in that way?
Yeah, I do, because
that's my dog.
I also believe that an intention and a practice holds a lot more energy than just an everyday action that you just do because you do.
Sorry, our dog was growling and barking. It was getting crazy. But so do you believe in that residual energy if you're praying for 5,000 years to God, thinking positive thoughts, if that's going to affect the atmosphere and, people's attitudes and minds around you?
Yes, I do. And I also think just the act of going to church and doing prayer and, you essentially do little practices or rituals, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of intention behind it. And there's extra energy behind intentions and practices with intentions. This is actually a download that came to me one time when I was doing like a kind of practice meditation thing, and I was putting more action into it than just sitting there and meditating. I was working with elements, I was journaling, I was, doing various things that were putting more intention into it. And then that's when it came down to me that, an intention, that's why, actual practices and rituals, things like that, are very, very powerful because of how much intentional energy you're putting into what you're doing.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a great connection, because that's what everything is about. The universe is running on intention. That's why we're here, because we decided to come here before we were alive, but we had the intention to do it. So instantly, if you have the intention, which is quicker than a thought, quantum entanglement, you can get things done immediately. And like you said, if you're putting more energy towards something, more intention into it, then you're going to be able to manifest things way quicker. So if you want to be, let's just say, how everyone wants to be a millionaire, everyone wants to be rich. If you're putting no effort into it and no intention, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
But if you say, I want to be rich, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be a millionaire, and you're working hard and you're dressing like a millionaire every day you wake up, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're acting like that, because the only time is now, and you're living in that reality right now. And it's basically a ritual you're doing to put more and more effort into that belief, into that reality, in which that reality eventually becomes true, because it has to, because you're having that intention, you're living your entire life doing that and putting more and more intention every single day, every single minute. It's the same thing if you want to be healthy, if you're putting intention. I journal every single day that I'm healthy. I have 4 journals filled with positivity that I write every single week, at least 3-4 hours every week. You have to put the work in to be fully manifesting what you want.
Yeah.
So,
oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say that, but this sacred spots, with the church and it having all that energy, the positive energy sitting in there, I can totally see that, and I definitely agree with that. Whenever I go into the woods and try to connect with the trees, I won't go to different trees. I'll go to the same ones that have that sacred energy that we've already connected, because that energy is already there, and every time I go there it gets stronger, and you can feel it. So that energy is definitely real, and what you put out is.
Then it stays there and it builds.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know trees and plants are sentient beings.
Yeah.
So they have their own energy as well. So they will acknowledge you and they will be able to tell if you're putting positive energy towards them. So we'll continue to watch.
I was an atheist, and I understand your points of view very, very well.
So you were like me?
Very well.
At one point.
Yeah, at one point. Let me ask you another question. In your mind, purely in your mind, what is the difference between a dream and a memory?
Attached to it.
You have
whether it be
senses attached to a memory, but you don't have a
touch.
dream. But you don't with the dream.
No.
Yeah,
A
Correct.
dream is
Correct.
yeah.
Understood.
You don't want. I won't answer.
Understood.
that,
But I'm saying if
yeah.
you remove the senses element, if you're sitting here and you're trying to remember a dream or you're trying to remember something that actually happened, what's the genuine difference?
Well, one that I lived through it, and the other one I haven't.
No,
lived through
you
it.
know that. I'm not asking that. I'm saying in your mind, in and of
Yeah.
itself, remember a dream and remember a real event. Do
Yep.
you remember them any differently?
Not really.
No, I
but
can't
Not
remember a
really.
dream.
It's not really
No,
is the
it's-
true
no,
answer.
not really.
If it's cerebral, you can sit there and go, okay, that happened, that didn't happen.
A
That's
memory-
cerebral. I'm
a
not
me-
saying
I
that.
would
I'm
say a
saying
memory's more
remember
real.
it and try and experience it in your mind. And you'll
Okay.
soon learn that
Doing-
it's only the idea of things that make them real. Let me tell you something that you will not
Okay.
believe. I'll tell you something you will not believe.
Yeah.
People often ask me, especially when I put up a picture on Instagram, how I'm in such good shape. Say, how are you in such good shape when all you do is travel the world and drink alcohol and smoke cigars?
Their
You
idea
barely
of
go
it.
to the gym. And I say that I train in my sleep, and they call me crazy. Because I can lucidly dream, because I can control my dreams, which is another podcast in and of itself, I train in my dreams. I convince my mind that I've trained. I convince my mind that I need to be ready for war, and my body reacts accordingly. It is the ideas that are real. What do they say in the Matrix? The body cannot exist without the mind. It's the ideas that are real. An idea in and of itself is real enough. If you remember a dream the same way you remember a real event, they are basically the same. My body proves that because I do most of my training as I fucking sleep. If I believe in the idea of God, if millions of people believe in the idea of God, if millions of people do good things under the name of God, the same God, and they believe in him, and they pray to him, and they worship him, even if he's not a real person, as an idea in and of itself, it exists. And that idea which exists makes people act in the way in which God would want them to act, which makes God real. He may only be real as an idea, but that's real enough. You must understand, you're thinking of it as...
I definitely have something to say.
Okay, go ahead.
So, like, definitely our ideas, like, they make things real. Like money. Like, money really wouldn't exist unless somebody said, hey, this is money, and then a bunch of people agreed to it. Like, we all have to agree to something to make it, like, exist, and then it just exists. And we just have to say something exists, and that's what makes it real.
And it will.
Yeah.
Because money used to be real. It used to be backed by gold. Now it's not.
Right.
Now it's not backed by anything. So it actually doesn't exist.
But it does because we all, like, agree to it as a
Exactly.
whole.
So that's actually what we're doing right now.
Right.
We're, as just being humans in and of itself. You can fly if you're human. You can just say nothing can affect me and it won't. But when you came into this reality, you collectively agreed to certain rules and parameters to live in this physical world. Right. So, but yes, as he said, that's very powerful and profound. Where God in and of itself, just the idea of God makes God real.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's very philosophical.
Yeah.
1437.
Also,
God.
wait, never mind. It was just so funny because, like, somebody asked me if I believed in God, and it's like the almost exact answer I gave them. Like, I told them, like, it's just the idea of God that makes God real. I just thought that was so interesting.
Wow. Beautiful. And that's what he was saying, Kelly, to your point, how we talked about earlier about working out. So yeah, that was the exact
That's right.
video. No, that's awesome.
God is a person. You think of it
Yeah, I
as the
get what you're
book.
saying.
You must think of it as an idea in and of itself. If the idea of God is adhered to, and that makes society act underneath God's will, then he is real. If the idea of evil is real, if the idea of perversion is real, then the opposite force must be real. This is Newton's second law. There must be an equal and opposite force. If there are people out there trying to do evil, there are people who are out there trying to do good. And when you find the people in the world who are trying to do the best for humanity, they're doing it under the name of what? God. He is a real thing because he is inspiring the resistance against the perversion of earth. And to sit here and say that God is not real, I understand your arguments.
Yeah.
The book is bullshit. He's not a person in the sky. Blah blah blah.
I don't
But
really
you're
think
thinking very one-dimensional.
I'm not
You're
in the
not
person
thinking
in the sky thing. I'm not really on that idea. I'd never thought that anyway.
You need to think beyond that and understand that all the perversion, all the negativity on the planet is being resisted under the name of one person.
Yeah.
And if that person
The idea of God.
if that person is an idea,
That's
which is
it.
God,
That is-
then God exists.
That is the best
I
way
get it.
anybody has ever put it towards me, by the way.
So I think that like maybe some people get like steered away from thinking there's like a higher power because the name God. Because like there's so many different names. Somebody at the shop told me, I don't know if I should like name drop or not. But
I don't know.
If they become cool with it, you say their first name.
yeah, Mr. E told me at the shop that 'cause I also don't want to be like it's my own idea. But he said that you know, we all have different names for God because we all just speak different languages. And that's why there's so many names. And it's just there's been just so many battles over the name God in different languages because we just forgot that we come from different places, and that's it's the same thing, we just call it a different name.
Yeah, that's basically what I believe, that there's just God is God. There's different names for him. It doesn't matter if you're calling God Zeus, if you're calling God, Allah, whatever, source, spirit.
Yeah.
It's God, it's just
They,
just a language thing. So that's a great point. That's beautiful because that's truly what that is. It's just God is God. It's an all-encompassing being that is for the force of good in its true sense. So people can say, the devil or whatever, that just means evil. But I don't even necessarily believe in, evil. I believe there's definitely things that are evil and bad, and by definition negative, which just means separate and not together, just moving in a separate direction in isolation basically, and not growing or changing, and positivity is coming together and, growing and sharing knowledge and, living in God in a sense. And I also believe that we are all, sorry not to cut you off, but I also believe that we are all a part of God, as it says in the Bible and many ancient textbooks. We are all a version of God because we are all the same. I believe everything is just energy, pure energy. If you could just see things how they truly were, it would just be one thing and it would all be energy. We are all the exact same thing. There is no one person over another. It's just we're looking at each other and believing that we're different people because we all have a personality and an ego. But really, it's just one person in the room right now talking to themselves. But we're experiencing the world in a way in which we're able to get different perspectives and different views on reality because we're experiencing the world through ourselves in different ways, which is what I truly know is going on.
Yeah, it's like God is everything, the source of everything, and God wants to, it's pretty much like God wants to experience himself in every single way possible, wants to create every single way possible, have every experience possible. So humans became possible. Every little thing, every little creature, every little plant, every little animal. It's just different things that God can create and wants to create. He wants to know everything. He wants to experience himself in every way possible. And we are a version of God experiencing ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I do want to add. I really like your perspective of that. I think that it's so interesting because we all have these different perspectives of like what God is. Like for me, I think that God is everything. So it's the bad and it's the good. Evil. They kind of have to coexist. Like he said, like there has to be the opposites.
Yeah, yin and yang.
But I think that God is like everything, universe, and it's not a he. It's a feminine, masculine energy put together, and then we have these different names for God: positivity, it just depends on like what realm I guess you're speaking of what God is. Because somebody could say God and maybe they're not even speaking to like, a God of good. They could be speaking to a God of, something bad. It just depends on where the energy is at. And I think it's just so interesting how we put these little names to things like God or,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't believe God is a man or a woman. When I sense God, I do sense a masculine energy, but God can show themselves in any form that they want. God can be a he can be a woman. I can see people's perspective on saying a woman give birth. So, they create life. But in my experiences, I have noticed a masculine energy from God. And then it's only natural that he would have both, like everyone does. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. Very cool.
But I really never thought of it the way he said. So it's really interesting, just like God in the traditional sense of like representing all things good. When people really believe in that, they become more good. They want to be better people. They want to do better in the world. And that is what traditionally God wants us to do. So that alone, by him just existing, the belief of that existing makes people do what that thing wants, then it has to be real.
Right.
So that's interesting. I really never thought of it like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can measure a thought. Every thought that you think in your mind has a frequency and goes out until the end of time. The more powerful you think something, the more energy you put into it, the bigger, the more powerful. So just that in and of itself is a real thing. If you're thinking something, it's real. It actually has to exist in some way, in some form. If not only in your mind, then it exists. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly how, God works as well. But it's very interesting conversation, very powerful. And you guys do have interesting perspectives on it.
You too.
Yeah, so